There's a word for what Canada is doing right now that you're not going to hear in the evening news in the United States. Right? It's called de-risking, and it's really the quietest way that a country can say goodbye. It's like the Irish goodbye of geopolitics. If you're watching from Canada, you are winning a masterclass in survival. I can validate that feeling. If you're an American, you really need to wake the hell up, because the cheap energy that we've been taking for granted is about to take a one-way trip to Asia. Now, while the political conversation right now in the States is just nothing but screaming over the next 2 years of election cycles, Canada is pouring concrete for 2030. By the time people down here actually figure out what's happening up north, the concrete's already going to be dry, right? Those 20-year contracts, they're already locked in. We're the ones who are going to be paying for it either at the pump or in the utility bills. As Americans, we really have to be honest about this, because we have a terrible time looking past the next election cycle. And we do treat global macroeconomics like it's a game. Right? We slap 50% tariffs on something whenever the politician needs a cheap win. But doing this to Canada is a huge mistake, because it ignores the fact that they actually keep our refineries full and our grid running. Canada isn't playing the game anymore, at least not our game. The resolve isn't loud, it's logistical. Right? They put their heads down, they stopped arguing. You're not hearing any screaming coming from the media in Canada. What they're doing is physically building the infrastructure to rewire their economy towards Asia and Europe and South America. And the thing is, this administration thought that it's using the market as a club to force Canada in line, to make them bend the knee. But as a result of all that big stick politics, all we actually did was force our best friend to become our biggest competitor. But we can't even compete if they withdraw from us. Here's the reality of what's happening on the ground right now. Now, over the weekend, something absolutely massive slipped past the American news cycle. Alberta officially handed over the West Coast oil pipeline over to federal regulators, asking Ottawa to declare it a project of national interest under the Building Canada Act. For my American viewers, I know that just sounds kind of like political noise. That's what you're used to, so you're going to try to drown it out. When Ottawa slaps the national interest stamp on a project, what it is not red tape, right? That's a bulldozer. It's Ottawa telling every single local council and environmental group, get out of the way. Here, we're going to pull a map up on it, right? It's 1,250 kilometers of heavy crude pipe starting at Bruderheim, Alberta, cutting straight through the Rockies and dumping into a deep water port at Delta, British Columbia. 1 million barrels of oil every single day. That isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. What this is to my Canadian viewers is your financial sovereignty. But to my American viewers, that's the route our cheap energy takes when it leaves us for good. Every single mile of that pipe is money coming out of your pocket 5 years from now. Oh, sleepy. Now, to pull this off, the Canadian government's bypassing the decade of environmental reviews that usually kill these kind of projects. So they decided to kick off the mandatory 30-day waiting period. That way they can lock in the approvals by October 1st, 2026 and break ground next year, September 2027. I need you to think about what we're actually talking about here, because this is the Canadian government that built its whole identity on green policy. But when pushed into the corner by American tariffs, they're stepping up to do what's necessary for their country. Ottawa basically just told the environmental lobby, we're going to save the planet on Wednesday, but on Tuesday, we have to make sure that we still have a country. But the oil really is only half of the story. To see really how Canada's locked the door, you have to look at what's happening with their gas, the LNG. If you're in Canada, you've probably already seen the news reports about how 55% of Canadian LNG is going to be going to Germany from now on. Right now, almost 100% of their gas comes straight to the US because we're the only buyer within reach. That 55% is Canada's hard target for the early 2030s. To my Canadian audience, yeah, congratulations, because your leaders have already signing the binding paperwork to guarantee that this happens. So like I said, while we're arguing about all the insanity and absurdity that's coming from Truth Social, Canada's signing contracts. This is a 20-year legally binding, we don't need you anymore contract with Germany. In May and July, the LNG project up in British Columbia locked in massive supply deals with German energy giants SEFE and Uniper. Millions of tons of gas every year guaranteed through 2030s and 2040s. The question I get from a lot of American viewers when they hear this kind of news is, why would Canada do that? Don't they understand that Trump's going to be gone in 2.5 years. You know, this madness will end. It'll be business as usual. They have to protect themselves from the future, and that's why de-risking is the key phrase here, because look at the United States and look at our political cycles. Right? There's nothing changing that says that another Trump-like figure won't come about in 2 years, or Trump won't be reelected. Or 12 years from now, there will be a new leader of the country who's even worse than Trump. So they're safeguarding themselves from the impacts of that inevitability, because let's be honest, America is getting more crazy, not less crazy. Now, for 50 years, the US is really the only store on the block that could buy Canadian energy. So we got the family discount in oil and gas every single day because, hey, where else are they going to take it? Canada got tired of being America's bargain bin. This pipeline and these LNG docks exist for one reason: to destroy our monopoly. And the thing is, it is working. And that's the quiet resolve. Because you can have Trump and you can have his lackeys get on TV and yell at Canada and say they're not buying our booze. Ooh, talk about how they're not coming to America and bending the knee as they should. When Washington wants to treat a 100-year-old friendship like it's a one-night stand that they can just walk away from, the thing is they think that they're being tough. In all actuality, they are the loudest person in the room who doesn't realize that that room is completely empty. Why do you think this administration actually had to dig through a dusty drawer just to find the Section 338 of the Tariff Act of 1930? Because American politicians realize that the old rules don't work when the best supplier is already halfway out the window. You know, they're trying to lock the front door while Canadians are climbing out the back. Dusting off a 1930s tariff law in 2026 is like pulling a flintlock pistol into a drone fight. It makes a lot of noise. Yes, it makes a lot of smoke. Yes, but you're more likely that you're just going to blow your own fingers off. On top of that, the U.S. is invoking forced labor clauses to bypass Kuzma rules entirely, slapping a no entry sign on Canadian goods without even looking at the rules. Like I said, de-risking. Because this may play well on the campaign trail in the Midwest, because like I said, it does sound tough. And Americans, over 100 million Americans right now, still believe that big stick politics in the modern era works. But the whole thing is just one big total strategic blunder. When you slap a 50% tax on an economy linked to your own, you aren't playing hardball. You're holding a gun to the head of your neighbor's economy. So with the position that Washington has put Canada in, they really only have two choices. One, they can take the hit and stay dependent on whatever mood Washington wakes up to, or they can build a way out. And they chose to build a way out. Canadians aren't cutting off our power grids or throwing a public tantrum because they know fighting a $26 trillion economy head on in the short-term trade war is doomed to fail. And instead, they're just stepping around us. And that's what they've been doing. I need to hit on this again and again and again because Americans need to wake up to it. The scariest part of this for Americans isn't the pipeline itself, right? It's what happens 10 years from now when Washington tries to flip a switch during an energy crisis and finds out that the power that we thought was going to be there has been rerouted to Tokyo. All this comes down to the fact that this is the end of an era. Americans have enjoyed a massive geographic privilege for over a century. We share the longest undefended border on Earth with a country that's packed with resources, highly educated, and historically content to kind of quietly feed our industrial engine for cheap. A U.S. president can flip trade policy with an executive order, but what you can't do is tweet a 1,200-kilometer steel pipeline out of existence once the super tankers start shipping that oil out of Vancouver. Right? This isn't a temporary policy debate. Right? This is a geographic divorce. This is the geographic divorce happening in real time. When this pipeline opens up, somewhere between 2032 and 2034, the North American balance of power changes permanently. Right? The Arctic is melting. The new shipping lanes are opening up. Canada is capitalizing on the fact that they have ownership over those straits. The next time that the U.S. hits an energy shock, which will happen at some point, Washington's going to turn north and expect Ottawa to just turn on the taps just like they always have. Except those taps are going to be pointed to the Pacific Ocean, bound by 20-year contracts to allies in Asia, in Europe, and South America who didn't threaten to wreck their economy for a short-term bump in the polls. To my Canadian viewers, the quiet resolve is working. You're building an independent future. This is true. To my fellow Americans, those of you who are actually watching this, the educated ones, right, what we've done is traded our long-term structural supremacy for short-term political theater. What we've done is build a wall, but the Canadians, they built a door. Food for thought as always. Take care.